All right, guys, so today I want to talk about creating reusable components, template components in Bricks Builder, utilizing CSS variables in a way that makes your components very, very easy to modify and to reuse. Just a methodology that I've come to over time, and I'd like to show you that. Now, I'm going to use an example of a card because it's the most common kind of layout that you're going to use as a component. I'm going to do another video which shows how you can use those card layouts for heroes, for calls to action, for all sorts of things. A card is not just a card like a team member or a testimonial or something like that. It can be used for many, many things because it's exactly the same layout where you've got a box, where you've got maybe some media, you've got a header, you've got a footer, and you've got a body, and those have some components in there. So they're pretty much the same regardless of whether you're looking at a hero, a team card, a testimonial, whatever it is. It's a great way to simplify what you're doing. Now, for this demonstration, I am going to use advanced thema features, and I'm using my own little SAS framework, which I've just created here, which is very lightweight. It gives only very, very few utility classes, a handful of variables that are just the common ones that I use, and that's what I'm going to use in this particular example. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do is with my container, I'm just going to shrink the size a little bit so that I can work it as a card. So I'll set my max width to say 400 pixels, and there's got a little box there that we can work with. Going to add a block, call it my card basic, and inside my card basic, I'm going to add another block, which I'll call my inner. And then I'm going to add a div. I'll explain a div a little bit later why I use a div instead of a block. I'm going to call that my header. And just duplicate that twice. And that's going to be my body and my footer. Okay, in my header, I'm going to stick, you can stick whatever components you want here. Maybe I'll stick a icon and a heading. And in my body, I'm just going to stick a basic text. In my footer, I'm going to put a icon and a text link. Put whatever you want in here and name these accordingly. Now, we're going to use BEM naming here, so block element modifier. So the first thing you'll notice in here is we've got a card basic. We've got a header, we've got an icon there, we've got an icon here. We've got some basic text there, we've got a text link, they're not the same. If we did put a basic text in the footer, we'll have two basic texts. Doesn't make sense for BEM. So what we want to do is go to these elements here. I'm going to call that my header icon, and I'm going to call this my header heading. I know it sounds crazy. And my body, I'm going to call that my body text. I'm going to call my footer icon. And I'm just going to call this my footer link. Okay, and there's my basic structure ready to go for a card. Advanced thema, I just right click on the card basic at the top here, which would be my B of my BEM, so the block, and go to the class converter and hit create classes. What that's done is it's, instead of me typing out class names and thinking of class names for all these, we look over at the top left here, and it's called that my card basic. My inner is my card basic underscore inner, header underscore header. So all my elements, so the E's of the BEM, so the elements are all created for me just by doing that. Okay, so the B's and the E's are really, really great because you just create your structure, right click, run the class converter, and you're done. As long as your naming is good, you don't end up with two icons or two basic text, whatever. Think of the naming before you run your class converter, and it just works for you. All right, that is our basic structure. Now we have two options here for styling this. One is that we can go to the UI and we can go through here and we can add padding and margin and border and all that sort of stuff. My preference is to use the CSS tab, and I'm using ACSS, so I get the superpower CSS, which gives me a few extra features in here. And the reason I do it in here is because it's all in the one place. For me, it's easier to understand, easier to find your settings. If you do it through the UI, you've got to bounce around the UI, finding out where's the border, where's the background, where's the color, where's the box shadow, and even then some of your box shadow you can't do in the UI, so you have to use the CSS block for that anyway. So I'm going to show you how I do it. Now there's a neat little tool in advanced thema. superpower for CSS, and that's this beautiful, not before the add component selectors. I'm going to click that, and it's created all of my selectors for me for the elements that I have there. So it's a really good starting point. Now I typically will duplicate that root block, and I name these, and I'll show you why very shortly. I'll call that my settings, and I'll call the next one down here my application, or my application of settings. Okay, there we go. So we've got some basic settings. Now, first of all, we're going to style this up using these direct settings directly in these selectors here. We're then going to move them up to settings by using variables to show how easily you can then manipulate these and understand where the settings are. So I'm going to go for my root. I'm going to add a border. Actually, we'll add some padding first. And because I've got advanced seamer, I've got some autocomplete, so I'm going to use my space. These are coming from my framework, and I'm going to use my FW for framework space M. And then I'm going to add a border of 1px solid, and I'm going to use my neutral transparent, maybe the transparent 4. Now those there are coming from the AT color manager. So I've just got a standard palette here where I've got some colors created there for primary, secondary, and neutral. And my black and white, I've only got transparencies on those. So T1 through to T6. The others, I've actually got my light versions, my dark versions, and my transparencies. So that's all done in Advanced Seamer. If you don't have Advanced Seamer, you can create these manually yourself in the Bricks UI. But this is really handy because you create your colors here, and because AT is so brilliant, it gives you auto, or type ahead I should say, for autocomplete in the editors here, and even in the UI, the Bricks UI, you can auto complete those with a type ahead. So we'll get in that, and let's give it a radius, border radius, of radius. There goes, F framework radius. I'll purposely put FW for framework in front of all of my variables and utility classes, so then we can identify whether these are locally created classes for this particular site, or these are coming from the framework. It's just something I decided to do. Okay, give it a background of, I don't know, what are we going to give this? Maybe neutral. Neutral light 5, maybe. That'll do for now. Neutral light 5. Okay. Now, that's our basic outer card. So that's the basic outer card. On our inner card, let's do the same here. Just copy those, be nice and simple. And we're going to give that a space of S. Maybe we'll give that a primary. Primary L2. There we go. And we'll give it a background of white. And we'll give it a bit of a box shadow as well. Box shadow of box. Again, we've got a type ahead for this here. Box shadow medium. There's a basic setup. Now I think I want to actually reduce that border radius. So I'm going to do the small version of the radius. So I get like concentric radius coming into there. And what I've done there, so yep, I've got a space of M for my padding and a space of S for the inside one. So the spacing gets smaller, the radius gets smaller. Up to you how you do this. Okay, now our header. So that's the header row. We want to set that to a display of flex. Now, I've done this as a div instead of a block so that it's not 100%. And that's so that we can later on use centering if we want to, which I'll show you a little bit later. So we've got the flex direction as a row, and we'll do our row gap as space S, and we'll align our items to the center. And by the way, if you don't know some of these settings, what you can do, that's column gap. If you don't know how to do some of these things, what you can do is use the UI, go in here, use the UI, set your settings, have a look at the CSS that it creates, and then you can copy and paste that into your CSS here. Or you can use the Chrome DevTools, and there's some cool little features in there. I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger for here. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to set a font size of, let's use our H4 size. Oops, I'm just going to use H4. So my heading framework H4. And then we're going to, on our, see, it made no difference because we've got an icon in there which has a default of 60 pixels. This is a font, and we've got a heading in here which has its own default size. So we're going to set the icon to be font size of, say, 1.3 EM. So that should be 1.3 EM of our header, which is set to H4. We're going to set the font size of the heading to 1 EM. All right, so let's drop that down to the H4 size, even though it's an H3 header. All right, so that's that there. The body, let's set our font size to text medium. And we'll set our body text to 1 EM to 1 EM. And I'm doing that here, the body wrapper, I'm setting the font size on the body wrapper and using M's on that because we might end up having a subtext in the body, for example, and we want that to be 0.7 EM. So, 30% less than the body text size. We just have to change the body wrapper font size and both of them will change. Okay, let's go to the footer. Now we're going to do the same as I did in the header with the footer. But we might set the font size to be H5. There we go. And in there, we're going to do the same with our icon, footer icon, and our footer font size for the link. All right, done. So there you go. So these are working now. That's because it's a text link here. We've also got an issue with our line height. So I'm going to set our line height on that as well to 1, and that fixes up our alignment there as well. Now we're not going to have spacing between these. So let's go back to our root and add some row gap of our content gap. Content gap there. Okay. Oh, that work? No. Oh, sorry. We've got an inner. That's right. We're going to put that in our inner. And there is our pretty well done. Now, the next thing we might add in here is we might add an image. So we're going to add a media wrapper. I'll do that as a block because we want that to be 100%. And we want it to go, say, after the body, but before the footer. So call it the media. And inside the media wrapper, we're going to put an image in there. I'll just pick any old image. That'll do. All right. And then we're going to run our BEM converter again. So I'm just going to right click on card basic, class converter, create classes, and it's found 2 classes there, which would have been the media wrapper. So now I've got a card basic media wrapper and I've got a card basic image. So we can go back to our card basic now and back into the CSS. And I think we inserted that after the body. So let's do it in the same place. So it just makes sense where to find it. So I'm just going to press a lowercase r in tab, and that gives me my root placeholder, 2 underscores, media wrapper. And we're going to set the aspect ratio to maybe 4:3. And we're going to set the order to -1. So it goes to the top. And then we're going to target the image inside that wrapper, because we put an image inside there. Actually, we can actually do this different because we actually give it a name. We can just call that image because we gave it a BEM name. So we don't have to target by using the sub selector. So we can just give it the name, and we can set the width to 100%, height to 100%, and object fit to cover. That doesn't distort. And there we go. There's our image inside there at the top of the page. All right, now that is the structure done. So from here, you've got a basic card that you could use for multiple things, but we're not done yet. We're not done yet. So you're not saying we set our settings in our application. How that works is what we're going to do now is going to grab that block of settings, go up to the top here, paste that in there. I'm going to put root. So this is my root setting. So this is targeting my root of my BEM, so the B of the BEM. And we're going to copy that prefix there and add it to there, and there, and there. Now we're going to copy the variable and we're going to put the variable there. So actually doing a variable of a variable, but it will make sense when I show you how reusable this is. Whoops, mouse is playing up on me today. I won't do every setting here because the tutorial will be too long. We're just going to give you the tip on how to do this. That's all. Just show you how to do it. Okay, so that's our background. Okay. So let's leave that. Actually, I might just do the inner because the inner is going to be something we're going to play with as well. And then I'll just do the media. Okay, so I'm going to make that my inner. This might seem like a bit of extra work, but once you've done it once, you can reuse this exact same structure on every website and just change the settings. And that's the beauty of doing it this way. Now, inner. What do we need now? The radius. Background. And a row gap. Okay, let's just do the media wrapper now. I'm just going to show you that part there. So I'm going to do the media wrapper. And we're going to default this to initial. Okay, media wrapper. Right, so we're ready to go. Now, that is now our standard. I'm just going to save this so we don't lose our settings here. So by just styling things up initially using the selectors and then converting all of those into locally scoped variables in a settings block, what we can now do is we can grab those settings. Let's go down to the bottom of our CSS here. not keen on this new search thing getting in the way down here. I'm not sure it's an advanced theme or it's a bricks thing, but I'm going to call this our modifier that's down here. Okay, now I'm going to use my lowercase r again, tab. I'm going to do dash dash v2 because I can't think of a better word for this one. So the dash dash in BEM is a modifier. So we've got our blocks. We've got a block at the top here of the card basic. All our elements under here, which is the 2 underscores, and the 2 dashes gives us our modifier. So we'll show you that very shortly. So what we're going to do is paste those settings into there. Picked up an extra bracket there. So paste our settings into there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to change some settings on there. But what we're going to do first is just duplicate that out. And on the second card, we're going to put the class on there of card basic dash dash v2. Okay, card basic, and we're not going to do anything on that particular element there, that bricks class. So we can actually lock that class if we want to. So we're going to lock that because we're not going to change anything there. We're just going to change it back over here, and it's much, much easier to do it that way because we can see in the one place how all these relate to each other, right? So there's our V2. Let's change the media wrapper order, -1. Okay, so now our V2 has the media wrapper at the top because we set that one variable. Let's say our root padding for that is space S. So we're going to tighten a card, right? And then we've got a root border radius. Make that a S radius. So that's a smaller, tighter radius in there as well. We're then going to set our inner padding to XS. Okay, we can see this all changing as we go. Inner border radius. Let's change that to be a, I don't know, a secondary L6. Okay, so we've got a slightly pinkish color there. Make it an L5. So it's more pinkish color or purple color there, right? We want more of a row gap. So let's, instead of using that there, we'll actually change that to be a space of L. What do I got rid of the column there? Okay, so now we've got bigger spacing for our row gap. So what we've got to do, we just created a card. We duplicated that card to here. And then we just created a modifier. And all we're doing on that modifier is overriding the settings that were in our setting block up here. So it makes it reusable. All you have to do is have one copy of the original card, and then you can make it reusable just by adding modifiers that override the variables. That is brilliant to me. Okay, now the next thing that I'm going to show you, and this is an AT thing. So this is a great feature of AT. Is what we can do with AT, you can make a completely different version of that card. So I'm going to call this one, I'm going to duplicate the first one, and on that one I'm going to call that my card, I don't know, team. On the card team, I'm then going to right click on that, and I'm going to use my component class manager. I'm going to use my bulk actions of the duplicate. I'm going to grab the card basic name from here so it only gets those classes. If we put other classes on that structure, we don't want to rename those or duplicate those. And we want to replace the card basic with our card team. Okay, and what we're going to do is we want to remove all the old classes from the elements in that structure, but we do not want to delete them from the global class list because we still want to keep the old version of it. Hit the duplicate. And there is our team. We've still got our team card there. So that's now a card team. Got a card team header. All of this still works. We can now go into the CSS of that. The CSS still works, all the CSS, because we're using the root placeholder. And also down here, In the modifiers, we're using the root placeholder as well. So by renaming that one set of structure, that's one structure there, renaming the classes on that, or duplicating, I should say, not renaming, we've created a completely different card. So if I grab a section down here, and I'll grab my team card and stick it in there. Okay, on my team card, I didn't put it inside the container. I did, I just didn't set the size of the container. Let's go back to that container, set the max width on that container to say 400. Okay, so what we can do is on our team card, we might want to default the media wrapper order to -1. So we're going to stick that at the top there, always, right? And on the team card, we might also have on that media wrapper here, let's put a border on it. So we're going to do border radius. Radius, I think we use small in there, so we use the small there. We're going to do an overflow of hidden, so we can actually see the radius. And maybe we'll do a box shadow of box shadow M. Grab, oops, I'm going to grab those that we've just added. Head up to where our media wrapper is. I'm going to add media wrapper in front of it. Okay, so we're going to get our media wrapper border radius now. You might want to copy this to a notepad document because it's a little bit difficult to work on. AT does have this feature here where you can zoom in a bit. So we're going to go down to our media wrapper and we're going to change the border radius to be that variable. Overflow hidden, and that's okay. We don't need that. That's a bit being a bit overzealous. Media wrapper. Okay, there is our default team member card. So I've changed that to be a person. Here we go. Here's a person. Okay. Now we've got a team member card, which is different to our card basic. And all we've done is right click, duplicate, change some settings. We've got now a completely separate version of that card that we can use for team members. So it's a really, really simple workflow. It's flexible. We don't have components in bricks yet, but this is kind of like components, except for we're setting our settings and properties using CSS variables. So I'm going to leave it at that because it's quite a long video. What I might do is when I get a chance, the next video I make will be on how to use these cards in more than just using as a team, testimonial, product, whatever. You can actually use it for calls to action, full width, full screen, and it really works well because you've got your same structures where you've got your header, footer, header, body, footer, components in those. You've got your media, which could be at the top or the bottom of that card. It could be in the background of that card, but you use exactly the same structure, and it just makes sense to me to keep things simple. I have a simple brain. I'm not that quick at this sort of stuff, so the simpler it is for me, the better. So hopefully you like this. If you do, give me a thumbs up and let me know. Thanks, guys.